Right. Welcome, Tilman, to the Real Estate Success Podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me today, Leland.
Oh, man, I'm excited to have you on here. When I met you last fall at an event, I was like, we got to get this guy on the show for sure. Tell our listeners today a little bit about yourself, personally, professionally, just who is Tilman?
Yeah, so Tilman Dunbar. I'm originally from Woodbridge, Virginia, right outside DC, about 30 minutes outside of DC. Avid sports guy. Grew up playing basketball. That gave me the ability to get a college scholarship to play basketball. Division I at the Naval Academy, United States Naval Academy.
Awesome.
Went there, played 4 years, had a lot of success and fun, and then, transcended that to commissioning into the United States Navy and serving as a surface warfare officer for 6 years
Wow.
until I got out in March of 2022. And I overlapped my last year in the Navy with real estate and started my real estate journey. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at post Navy, but real estate was a great avenue, and I was also looking at some financial options, going down the financial path as a tech bro, or not a tech bro, finance bro, and
Yep.
everything like that. But I've found a love for real estate and decided to stick it out and kind of ride that, and I've been doing it ever since. So April will make 4 years of me in the real estate industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've done really well in the real estate industry. And thank you for your service in the Navy.
Thank you for your support.
So, okay, so playing basketball in the Naval Academy, serving in the Navy. What even got you into real estate? So you're overlapping, you were looking at finance, but what was kind of how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I initially piqued my interest was the investment side, right? As everybody who thinks of real estate, right, is investments. Originally started doing tax lien investing. My father had told me about that, and I dove headfirst into all things of that because it was the lowest barrier of entry. So I thought, right, that you needed cash for it, but quickly learned that industry is very small, and you have to have cash to play in that industry. So I kind of transitioned from that and started doing flips, and had a mentor in the Navy who taught me all the things about flipping, and I started on my journey there. And on my first flip, I netted, a significant amount of money. I netted $100,000.
Wow,
And
that's
that,
awesome.
Propelled me to drop my paperwork to get out the Navy next day.
You're
Right,
like,
so
I
I'm
did
like,
this
man,
one thing and
yeah, I
made
did
more than I make in a year here. So I
Right,
should
right, and significantly much less time, and I was like, okay, real estate is what I want to do. Simultaneously with that, I had a really good friend of mine that I think of as a brother tell me that I should get my real estate license so that he can give me referral fees, right? So at that juncture, I was giving him about 8 to 10 referrals a year of just my buddies from the Naval Academy who were moving down here, right? So if you could think about the average agent or realtor, the average agent does 5 deals a year, 6 deals a year. And I was giving away 8 to 10 referrals and not thinking anything of it. You don't know what you don't know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I initially got my license to just simply be a referral agent. And then I had another buddy of mine tell me that, hey, Tilman, you're wasting.
Yeah.
You got so much more money if you just do this yourself.
Yeah, you're like, do you know what the referral agent payment is versus the commission?
I didn't think about, I was still in the Navy, so I was getting a Navy paycheck. So I was like, oh, this is good. It's extra money. I'm like,
yeah, you're like, I love this guy. I'll send him
right, it's no problem. But he was like, hey, I was in the military. I was able to be dual career. I didn't know what dual career was at that juncture. I was able to be dual career and find great success. If I could do it, you could do it. And that's what propelled me to really, okay, I'll give it a year. If I love it, cool, I'll stay and stick it out. And if I don't, I can just go on with my original plans of life. So that's kind of how I rolled in investor side and then kind of organically rolled into the agent side.
So did you ever do the tax lien investing side, or was it basically like right when you saw the barrier to entry, you're like, we're going to go flips?
Yeah. So I tried to do my first auction. I was all ready to go. I did all my research, had a list of about 25 homes I was going to invest in. And I was getting outbid, right? I had about $15,000, $10,000. I was a 25, 26-year-old kid. So I was like, this is a lot for investing for me. But people are coming with $50,000, $100,000 getting these properties. And I was just like, all right, I'm not at the level right now to where I can come into this space and actually make headway. So I was like, let me go this other avenue first, learn all I can, pour some time into that. And then I can always come back to taxing, invest in later in life. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I'm curious because flipping is also can be a very capital intensive thing too. When you did your first flip and netted so much, did you have investors in that? Did you have help kind of financing some of those improvements?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you have hard money lenders, right? So I learned all about that. Then but I didn't have to do a hard money lender for that. I had a private money person, like a family friend who lent me money for that. And then I had two partners on my first flip, like buddies of mine. And I was like, hey, let's go on this venture together. We can split the profits, right? So, that was kind of how I figured that. And I was like, this is much more manageable, much less money out of my pocket up front to complete a big project and see significant gains on the back end. You just got to put the sweat equity and the time and deal with all the stuff of it. But, it was, I fell in love with the process and kind of hit the ground running from there. And then especially when you get to the closing table, you see a check like that. You're like, oh yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, you're like, this makes a lot. This made the sweat equity worth it.
Exactly.
That's the beautiful thing about flipping is a lot of people want to get in on it. Like I think I was talking to a client the other day who was kind of saying like, I want to like learn about the real estate world investing side, but I'm not ready to kind of take it on myself. I was kind of saying, like, you have the money, you could be a hard money lender. You could kind of be a passive partner in that and get kind of insight into the project, get a return on it, but not be the one taking the risk or calling all the shots. And so there is a lot of opportunity. I see a lot of people who almost get paralyzed because they're like, I myself don't have the cash to do this big rehab. It's like, come with partners. There's a lot of people willing to get into that with you if you're willing to be the person to kind of just drive the ship. That's awesome. Yeah. So, okay, so you're all in on flips. Are you still in Annapolis when you're sending leads down this way, or are you living here?
No, I lived here. I was living here. So, 2016. Yes, I just freshly graduated. So I'm 22, 23, right out the academy. And I was living here in Virginia Beach. I was living with 4 of my buddies, other naval officers. We had a mansion. So we all rented a mansion down off of Rosemont, and it was beautiful. I had a lot of fun there, but I wish I knew about house hacking. I wish I could use my money to buy a quadplex and just rent out to my friends.
Oh my gosh!
But you don't know what you don't.
Yeah,
know,
you and me both.
Oh my goodness! But it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And I was still doing all Navy stuff. I went on a deployment. I was doing underways. Full on Navy stuff. I had no inclination of anything real estate until about 2021.
So then you're like, hey, I should stop sending these referrals. I should start doing this myself. Or your buddy tells you like you're leaving money on the table.
Absolutely.
But you're still in the Navy. So what did that look like as far as kind of beginning the process? Because a lot of people sort of the nice thing about real estate is you can like phase your way into it. You don't have to just be like, I'm done and with what I'm doing and now I'm over here. Right. So what did that look like?
So luckily for me, I'm an obsessive type of person. I love winning at all costs. So if I'm focused on something, I'm going all in on it, right? So my first 6 months in the industry, I had joined a team, which I highly recommend any brand new agent, right? I mean, we can all go solo. We can all figure it out, but you're going to stumble into success, right? You're going to make a lot of mistakes and go a lot along different directions that might retract from your success and growth, right? So those first 6 months I joined a team, they were super high level. They taught me how to be an agent, the right way to be an agent, right? And how to lead generate and do the things and track and make sure you're actually a successful agent long term, right? So I was able to learn those practices and implement those and put them into action. And I found a lot of great success in my first 6 months. After 6 months, I decided to go solo to close out my, last 6 months of the first year. And found tremendous success because I had that foundation from joining the team and learning how to be an agent the correct way.
So when you joined that team, I know every brokerage is a little different. Every team is a little different. were they giving you leads along the way? Was there a, larger split that you had to pay before going independent? What did that look like as far as kind of the trade-off to being on the team? Because being on the team, I hear so many people, especially the top producers I hear, are like, oh, I started on this team, and then eventually I graduated.
Yeah.
So what did that look like from a benefits costs perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for my first 6 months, I had done 13 deals, right? And of those 13, 9 or 10 of them were from my own sphere.
Wow.
Right. So for my deals, and the team had given me that net difference, right? So 3 or 4 deals from the team, right? So obviously it's a different split structure on the team where, instead of if you're going splitting with a brokerage where it's 70-30 or 80-20 with the brokerage, if you're on a team, you're usually on a 50-50 split. And then if it's a team lead, it might be 40-60 team or agent to team or whatever it is. Everyone's different, but you can expect kind of like a 50-50 split. That's kind of normal. So at that juncture, if you can imagine, if I'm doing 13 deals in my first 6 months, and I'm like, man, I gave away X amount. The math just started on math, and at that juncture, I realized like, oh, this is something I really want to do long term. And just at that juncture, I was just like, okay, I would prefer to go solo and kind of run this play myself and continue to grow. So,
well, yeah, and at some point, you're probably looking at like, okay, they gave me 3 deals, and they gave me training, which is invaluable, totally. But the math wise, you're like, I traded away 50% of 10 deals. Right. I was given 50% of 3 deals. Yeah. Technically, the math isn't mathing, like you said. Right. And so at some point, like, it's just going to I can do less deals and make more. And ideally, I do the same amount of deals, if not more deals. But even if I did just the 10 and I got the, greater split, that would have been a better mathematical deal.
Exactly. And then, like you said, I mean, if I was in the position where it's reversed, maybe I did 3 deals and the team gave me 10, I'm like, oh, why would I leave this? They're giving me a lot of business. But it's, the roles were reversed and I knew I would continue to grow from there. So at that juncture, it's just like a mathematical equation, right? So,
totally.
But like you said, I mean, that training and the knowledge is invaluable, right? Like, I would have had the amount of deal flow to get those things done. But if I went solo, I wouldn't have learned how to manage those. I wouldn't have learned how to follow up. I wouldn't have learned how to negotiate. I wouldn't have learned how to write a contract. So those first 6 months was, it's a priceless amount of foundation and training that I learned. And I think my success post that is, attributed to those first 6 months because I learned what not to do and what to do, right?
Yeah.
The goods, the negatives, the positives. So, it's invaluable.
It really is amazing in all fields. Like, you just don't know what you don't know. And it's hard to, like, humble yourself to be like, okay, I'm just going to come onto this team. But if you do that for a season, it's kind of this, like, slow down to speed up.
Exactly.
You're like, all right, I'll take a split. I'll be on this team. But they're going to give me the tools and resources to basically, I heard on another podcast someone saying, like, as opposed to, like, just giving you fish, I'm going to teach you how to fish. And now 1,000%. You can go crush it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of agents lose sight because naturally you join in the industry of real estate because you see the dollar signs, right? This is your opportunity to be self-employed. You're 1099. You're getting all the money. So people think, oh, I need 100%. But what's 100% of zero, right? If you have nothing that's going to actually, if you don't have the training, the pipeline, the know-how, you're not going to get any deals. And 100% of zero is zero. Yeah. Right? But
like even 50% of a watermelon is more than 100% of a grape.
Exactly. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to see it, or it takes them a long time to see that. So, I was, luckily for me, like, I was in a mindset going in, like, hey, I'm okay with taking less because this training is going to set me up and it's paid tenfold and, immeasurable dividends long term because I, like you said, humble myself for those first 6 months to learn and just listen and soak everything in. And that's okay. I might have left some money on the table, but I'm still in the industry now 4 years later because of that. So
yeah, and one of the top producers in the industry.
Right. Not just
Okay, so from there you're now independent. You're doing both the like retail buyer seller side. You're also doing more flips and investing side. What's kind of the story from then until now? Like, because now you have a team, now you've got assistants, now you've got multiple businesses spinning. So tell us kind of from the get-go where you got to now.
Yeah, so I mean, from that, still did a couple more flips, and then I ended up transitioning into buying apartment buildings and doing multifamily syndications while having my sales team. And then, like I said, right, instead of learning, right, we can do things ourselves, but you're going to stumble and essentially fail forward, right? So I started a team, right, but I did it the wrong way, right? I had two of my buddies from the Navy who saw the things I was doing, and they're like, "Hey, Tilman, we would love to join your team." And everybody properly, if you're going to join a team, their first two hires should be admin hires, right? It should be a TC and an executive assistant. I said, it's okay. I'll bring on my buddies. We're cool, right? And if you're saying no, if you're saying yes to some, you're saying no to something else, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not going to hire an admin as a rainmaker or a top producer agent of the team, all the agents under you, you're going to end up being the administrator for
now
them,
you're
right?
the TC
You're
for
the
them.
TC for them, right? So it's like, right? So I did that and, ran that play for 6 months, but it didn't end up working, right? Because I would still have to produce as a sales agent. I'm still being the admin on the backside. So, it ended up, and they found tremendous growth in there, and I was able to impart a lot of knowledge and wisdom to where they grew, and now one ended up, getting out of the Navy and moving away, but one is now still a top producer in our, ecosystem now. He just ended up starting his own team. I love that. I was able to, the same thing that my original team
did
for me, I was able to do for someone else. So I love that. That's amazing, right? So that's what it's all about. But anyways, I retooled after that. Went back to the drawing board and did it the right way of building my team, right? So I hired a transaction coordinator. I hired a full-time executive assistant, right, to run that. And then now just kind of have my agents and I have my small team of, people that we're executing on a high level now. So I had to fail forward, learn the wrong way to do it, break it down, and then now rebuild it up, right? So that's where I'm at now.
I've always heard the word fail stands for first attempt in learning. It's like, okay, well, thought that was going to work.
Yeah.
That didn't work out as smoothly as I thought.
Yeah, it's good. And I said, there's no such things as losses in life, right?
Yeah.
They're all learning experiences, right? So, I mean, if you have that mindset, you can take any situation and be like, okay, what can I take from this and apply it to the future so it never happens again, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's true in business. Like this is kind of a thought that I've seen a lot, especially in producing fields like real estate, insurance, financial planning. Right. It's like you really quickly want to hire the next you. Like you want to hire the next agent who's like, you're going to go produce and I'll get a cut of that. And then it's going to be this beautiful thing. But this idea of like, in so many of these fields, it's more important to kind of slow down to speed up.
Right.
This idea of like, okay, maybe my first hire should be an admin who can get my operations done really efficiently, which will then give me capacity to invest in someone and give me capacity to keep producing while this other person's producing. Exactly. But we kind of see the dollar signs and we're like, an executive assistant costs me money, or like it feels that way. This other person produces me money. And then you don't realize like, oh, without that key piece, like these, TCs and executive assistants and admin staff are so valuable for your time.
Absolutely. Something that can't be measured, right? So, and not to be cliche, but, it takes money to make money, right?
Yeah.
So if you invest in a elite high-level ops person, they're going to, like you said, free your time, which we don't get any back, to go actually do the things we're really good, the dollar-producing activities, right? The sales, the clients, the networking, to grow your business because you don't have to worry about the small, minor things in the background. So
I had to have like a business coach walk me through like, what is your hourly rate? And I'm like, I don't know, I could just set that. But then, they like look at your numbers and they're like, okay, basically this is what like your hourly rate costs because you need to be doing the most valuable pieces of this business. So is, filling out paperwork worth that hourly rate? It's like, absolutely not. Yeah. That is a task that I just need to get done at an efficient, like you said, elite high level, but is administrative. It's like, great, then you need to hire someone.
Yeah.
Because if you're paying yourself that hourly rate to do, $20 an hour work, $40 an hour work, you're like, well, that's not really working out,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For some reason I'm a money guy, but I'm like, that helped me kind of wrap my head around like, where am I putting my dollars? I would never pay someone my hourly rate to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's such a valuable tool that frees me up to do the high dollar valuable work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was man, I love that you said that was the growth in my, the next step I took in 2023, to kind of catapult myself to a different stratosphere is I hired a business coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was able to hire the executive assistant.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I was able to get, a full-time TC. And then that's how I was able to transition into taking over the CEO role for my brokerage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And running that place. So I was able to and start new businesses because I was like, all right, I found a very, very high level ops side and that now I don't have to worry about that as much and my focus can go be on all the growth and all the expansion and all those things to add more dollars to the enterprises and the corporations and all that good things. But yeah, business coach was the number one best decision I had
Oh my gosh.
in the past 2 years, right? And you don't need it forever, but they'll be able to get you rolling to the points where it changes the brain chemistry you have or how you even evaluate business or look at numbers. And then it's just going to have you moving extremely differently. So yeah, that business coach aspect was
key,
invaluable, very key, major key.
Okay, so right now with all of your plate spinning, what's the breakdown? Because you have, like, I just learned as I'm sitting here, the like CEO of your brokerage. I'm like, okay, add that to the. Are they pretty evenly split? Is most of it the buyer seller team, or is most of it the flips? Like, what is that? What's the kind of the pie chart?
So, luckily for me, and they are blessings, but I don't have any kids, right? And I'm not married, so I have time to focus on the things I want to focus on, right? And whether that's coaching and community work, whether that's my business, whether that's starting new businesses, I have time to do whatever I want, kind of, right? So, well, I don't even know where to start. All right, so CEO Keller Williams Elite 757, right? So we have a brokerage of 100 plus agents, 115 plus agents, and so being responsible for the retention of and culture of our community, the profit of the business, making sure we're making money, and recruiting and bringing in agents and making us grow. So responsible for that. As far as that, started that last year, January of 2024.
Okay.
So been in that role for a year now. That's been amazing. Still sales team, right? So still producing as an agent, right? And I went through transitions of agents on, agents off, all those things. But my main thing and bread and butter is still selling, right? Still have my investments, still doing flips. I do about, a flip a quarter. That's roughly what I do. So about 4 a year. And then right now, in the process of buying more apartment buildings, right? Under contract for a 30 unit, under contract for trying to get a 24 unit, all these different things. And then I have some other businesses outside of the real estate industry that I'm still involved in and growing those as well. So yeah, it's kind of really evenly split, but my main focus always is, and for the past year, it's been the brokerage and my sales team, right? Those have been my biggest focuses in growing those and making sure those are the main things I do. Everything's kind of ancillary from that, as far. And I try to tie in part of some JVs on like, the title side and things of that and try to learn more about insurance and mortgage and how to tie all these things to the main thing, which is the sales team and the brokerage aspect, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at. So a little bit of everything.
Which, congratulations, that's incredibly impressive. And I'm like, man, even without kids, I don't understand how to have time. Like, I get how that frees up time, but I'm like, the math isn't mathing.
We all still have 24 hours. So
I'm like,
what's stress?
I'm like, I don't know where you're getting these extra hours from. But I do think you're taking advantage of something that I've seen a lot with top producing agents is the beautiful thing about real estate is there's so many pieces to the transaction and there's so many ways to do it. So you just mentioned title, closing, insurance, mortgage, buying and selling, investing, flipping, property management. It's like in this one field, there's 100 places you could have your hand. And the people that I've seen that I'm like, your numbers are just higher, personally, professionally, are the people who get their hands on the different pieces of that. So there's a law firm in town that also, the owner of the law firm, they do closings also has a title company,
Mm.
also has an inspection company,
Mm.
also has an insurance company. It's like they're basically beginning to see, here's all the people who come to the table, and how can we take pieces of that and do it in a way that creates a lot of synergy for the client, not just I'm going to do all these things and none of them well, but says like, okay, when you work with us, we are also coordinating these other pieces and we have the teams in place. So for a closing, it goes a lot smoother because all the people are talking to each other because they're in one office. But also, as the owner, he's now getting all the pieces of the pie. Right. And so I've seen that with agents who similarly have like the investing side or have like a lending side to them, and I think that that's really a unique piece that many industries don't have. Is like, and you can stay in just the buyer seller world, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can make a great living, have a lot of flexibility. But I'm seeing people say like, how can I basically rise to another stratosphere? And basically sometimes it's let's take on different areas of this piece and figure out how to do that well, provide more value to the client and get more value out of it ourselves. So it's cool that you're doing that.
I mean, that is my main focus for this year, is just kind of more, structure myself to where it's like vertically integrated, right? So making sure, and not necessarily that I'm doing all the things, right? That I'm figuring out how to do HVACs, or I'm figuring out how to do, handyman work or title work or insurance, all these things that are adjoined to our property management, adjoined to our company. It's like, no, how do I position myself leveraging the business I'm already doing, right? Because, the top producers, like, vendors want to be associated with that. If you see someone who's doing $50 million, you're like, man, they do a lot of business. How can I be a part of your business, help you continue to grow, right? So that's kind of the main focus for me, is like, how do I leverage my sales business, my investment business to go out and find these partnerships to where I can continue to provide value and add to my current businesses while also being able to touch on all these other pieces of the pie, right? So
totally.
So that's kind of my biggest focus this year, just how do I continue to grow without having to be the one with the hands on, but being able to connect with high level people who are already doing amazing things in these other fields, and then tie it into the business I'm already doing. So, just utilizing those partnerships and networking and relationships to help each other grow and help each other win. So,
oh man, it just gets so fun from that perspective.
Absolutely.
So for you, what would you say has surprised you the most about your journey through real estate or through your career?
I think the biggest thing is just like in the military, our growth and success is very linear, right? You have a defined path and you can see it. If I'm a brand new ensign at year one, I know exactly what my path to success, depending on what, designation you have. If you're a SWO, if you're a Marine officer, if you're a EOD tech or a SEAL officer, whatever, you know what it looks like to get from O1 to O10. It's very, very clear, whether you're a pilot, whatever. In the real estate industry, there is no linear path. Right? It's no linear path. It's like, phew, you're up, you're down, you're here, you learn something new. It's boom. Now we try to keep it as linear as possible, but even if you're doing high successful things, you're going to learn something else and you're going to be like, oh, I want to learn more about that. You're going to go join over here. I think that's the most surprising thing, is just how non-linear it is, and you can still find success without being linear, right? Because you're just going to encompass so many more aspects on your journey to whatever your goal is. And I think that's the coolest thing about real estate, man. It's just so many avenues that you can find success in, especially if you do business the right way and you connect with the right people. Like, man, the sky is actually beyond the sky is the limit, man. It's like endless possibilities. It's crazy. So that's probably the most surprising and coolest thing about the real estate industry.
The way you explain that is like, it almost sounds so much more freeing, as opposed to being like, this is the path. It's like, what is the path? I can make the path. There's and when I get to where I think the path is going, there's going to be a new peak.
You can pivot and go somewhere. It's just awesome. I love it. I could charge, or here's my 5-year goal, and let's say I get there in 4 years. I'm like, what's next? all right, I want to go do this now and just go charge there. So
Yeah.
it's so cool in that aspect.
Oh, that's awesome. What, if there has been, but what's been the low point for you?
Low point. So I don't necessarily think of low points. Honestly, and maybe it's just my mindset, but it's never been probably honestly stepping into this role of like being the CEO and like the team leader of the brokerage. I think saddest points are emotional speaking is like when an agent leaves you. Right. So if like, you spend the time to recruit them and bring them into the culture and, you're training them, you're motivating them, you're coaching them, you're pouring into them. And then they're like, hey, I decide to go do another opportunity. Now we're all 1099, so anyone can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Right. But it's all, you always get an emotional attachment,
Totally.
a little bit, right? And pouring into people. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the lowest points I've realized. And, before this past year, it was just me and like, a couple agents and my people. But, anytime someone leaves an organization that I'm a part of or running or leading, it does. It hurts.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm sure it feels personal.
Yeah,
even if it's not, but it feels like rejection in some way.
But in the same way, you should be pouring into people and coaching and mentor people to almost like encourage them to leave you, go fly the coop and go look for other better opportunities, right? It's, if you kind of hold them back and you kind of keep them in the cage, like it's almost like a limiting belief in that regard. But you should be pouring into people with the expectation that one day they are going to leave you. So it helps me a little bit on that, but still, you're still like, it's just a little sting. Like, dang it.
Yeah.
I can help you more, but, it's just.
That's so human. The idea of like, you want to have the abundance mindset of like, hey, there's enough for us to go around. Like, you winning doesn't mean I'm losing.
Right.
Me winning doesn't mean you're losing. Right. You can go, like, your buddy who started his own team. Right. You're like, that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Like, I rose up on the shoulders of someone before me. Right. You rose up on my shoulders. Now others are rising up on yours. Right. Like, we're all, rising tide lifts all ships. Exactly. But then, at the end of the day, it is so relational. You're like, oh, someone left. You're like, dang.
Yeah.
And you can't help but feel the like sting of that. So that makes total sense. So this is a podcast about success. But if we just went out on the street and asked anybody, how do you define success? What does success look like for you? You're going to get a different answer from each person. So what's your definition of success and how will you know if or when you've achieved it?
Man, so for me, to me, and I'm a competitor at heart, so nothing ever satisfies me on the journey. Like I could win a championship and be like, I want to get another one, right? So my goal of success is being influential, wealthy, powerful enough to really significantly impact your community, right, in a positive way, right? So success to me, and I'll know if I find success ultimately if I can drastically impact and uplift my community without any, blockades or any barricades to my influence, right? So I just want to be able to give back as much as possible and just be able to, if I want to build a whole 150 home community and for underprivileged people, I want to be able to do that. If I can influence policy for the city to where everybody underneath a certain income gets free lunch, whatever it is, I just want to be able to the place to where I can really impact change in people's lives that aren't as fortunate, right? So once I get there, I know I've lived a good life and I've made success. So until then, I'm going to keep pushing to get to that point.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Tilman, thank you so much for giving us your time and being on the podcast today.
Appreciate you having me today, Leland. Yes, sir. That was fun.